the early stage investing with late stage expectations, rethinking VC metrics in 2026. So please join me as I welcome on stage. And guys, a warm welcome, please. Lots of tea and coffee is flowing out in the networking, so I'm expecting a warm welcome from you guys. We have our moderator, Maxim Shkvaruk, who is the founder and managing director of Atlas Ventures. Welcome, please, Maxim. And joining us, our panelists will be Dr. Ruchi Dana, partner for MFV Partners, and Mr. Walid Faza, the general partner of Novo Capital. A warm welcome indeed.
Yeah, thanks a lot for this. And welcome everyone to the Global AI Show. Thanks a lot for being here. So we have a pretty interesting panel today. It's going to be a little bit more kind of concentrated than it used to be, than it was supposed to be. So my name is Maxim. I'm a founder and managing partner at Atlas Ventures, early stage VC fund with offices in Abu Dhabi and Singapore. And it's my privilege to moderate this session. We have an absolutely stellar lineup today of speakers, super experienced people in VC, and a lot of things to unpack. So I'll probably let you guys introduce yourselves. So Dr. Ruchi, maybe you go first.
Thank you, Maxim. I think it's an absolute honor to be here. It's a wonderful opportunity to be here amongst these amazing startups, and I've seen a number of startups here presenting. I think it's really exciting to be here as a VC because you see new things coming up in this region of the world. To give you a brief background about myself, I'm Dr. Ruchi Dana. I'm a medical doctor and a Stanford MBA. I was born and raised in the Middle East. I was born in Libya in north of Africa, and then our family moved to Dubai in the early 90s. And we do have a family business here that my dad started. It's into manufacturing of steel and oil, very, very traditional field. But I was always amazed by new startups and things to do with my own hands. Even back during the medical college days, I remember I was presenting a lot of papers, publishing a lot of papers, working on low-cost medical devices. But even the best of professors in medical college never knew like how to commercialize a device, what to do. And that was back in 2008. And I didn't really understand the language of business, so that's when I decided to go for an MBA. And I was lucky enough to get accepted to various schools and chose Stanford because of its focus on entrepreneurship. At Stanford, I also took the Stanford Biodesign course. So what happens there is you have lawyers, engineers, PhD holders, MBA students, all come together to solve for unmet clinical needs. And I think that was a turning point in my entire life because that's when I decided that this is something that's really solving and making an impact in the world. We also got an NIH grant from the US government, and I led a trip to China to study unmet clinical needs and work on my own medical devices. Eventually, I started my own robotic surgery startup. It's called Duluth Medical. It was a low-cost robotic surgery startup, especially for knee replacement, hip replacement, and shoulder replacement surgeries. That got exited, and that's when I entered the VC world. So it's been 6 years now that I've been a VC, and we focus mainly on deep tech startups. And I do have a couple of patents on robotic surgery, and that's the kind of things that we look for when we look at startups. So not really revenue metrics, but more on the IP side of things. I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to this amazing panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ruchi.
Thank you. So I don't know how I ended up becoming a venture capitalist, honestly. I graduated from university and all I wanted to do was play music. So I joined a rock band and my dream was to be a musician. That clearly didn't work out the way that I wanted it to, although I spent 10 years playing music. I met a very interesting individual when I came back to the region. His name is Fadi Ghandour. He's the founder of Aramex, extremely well-respected individual. And he said over coffee one day, how would you like to manage my personal funds? And I was flabbergasted. I was very happy. I joined him for 10 years. He had some of the biggest exits in the region, the Yahoo Maktub exit, the Souq Amazon exit, the Careem Uber exit. And it was just a fantastic story, honestly. A Cinderella story of being at the right place at the right time, entering VC at the time when the market in the Middle East was opening up, Saudi opened up, UAE opened up, the sovereigns woke up and they said, hey, we can invest all of this capital into wonderful, brilliant startups, and we can really make an impact by investing in technology very early on. And international companies finally woke up and said, hey, the Middle East is actually a place that's interesting. It's got an incredible market, and we need to invest there. 6 years ago, I decided to further my development by joining a Chinese venture capital fund. Because while in WAMDA we had one unicorn, which was Kareem, in 2015, the Chinese fund that I ended up joining, MSA Capital, in 2015, same vintage, had 8 IPOs. So I was really interested to see what was happening in China. Why is everybody looking at Silicon Valley only, while at the East there's something else that's happening? Here we are in UAE and KSA in this part of the world. We can actually choose where we want to learn from and what we want to do in terms of building our technology. And it made sense that we should look eastwards and see what's happening there in terms of technology and adapting it into emerging markets. So I've been with them for 6 years. We have a $180 million fund that we've invested outside of China. And now, as you know, the world of AI, in my view, is bifurcated between US and China. US are fantastic at presenting themselves and marketing themselves, and everybody, I hope, is using OpenAI and other apps. But China, I think, is really doing some incredible work when it comes to humanoid robots, AI, infrastructure plays. So I think the world needs to be aware of what's going to happen there. And I think it's to the benefit of this part of the world to really hedge their bets and really understand what's happening on the East. Because I think we're in a very strategic geographic location to get the best of both worlds. We have the luxury of choosing. We have the luxury of building. We have an incredible youth population that I've seen over the past 18 years of my experience. And I think it's cliche to say we're at an inflection point and there's going to be a paradigm shift. But if anybody has read AI 2027 in this room, yes, good. You're interested. You know what's happening in the future. We could be extinct in a few years. So that means we need to be aware. We need to work with AI. It needs to be done for good. And I'm very interested to talk to you a little bit more about VC in this panel, because the world has changed. Anyone pitching today is very different from someone pitching 6 months ago. And the rate of change is incredible. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Walid. So there'll be a lot of AI in this panel. So let me start with this. So we see, I expect this panel to be a bit more interactive, guys. So don't hesitate at the end of it to prepare your question. We'll get like a few questions asked, and we have like enough expertise, I hope, to answer that question.
This is your chance to grill us, the VCs.
Exactly.
Anybody who has been denied any capital as a startup and wants to rage about it, now's your chance. I'm happy to take that.
Yep. So yeah, let's start with that. So so across AI and tech more broadly, we're seeing a growing tension. So investors are expecting late-stage traction, early stages, and the tension has intensified post-2022 as capital tightened. The result, the startups must perform like Series B companies, even at seed stages. So that's kind of catch-22. So a lot of entrepreneurs kind of know this story. When they come when it gets to the pitch to VC, they're asking a lot of metrics they don't have. They need capital to get to those metrics, so that hence catch-22. So we'll talk a little bit about that kind of tension and expectations that VCs and startups and LPs have in different geographies and different sectors. So, Dr. Ruchi, first, I'll start with you. So we have companies like Thinking Machines, Safe Superintelligence, World Labs, Mistral raised billions of dollars without an actual product. Obviously, some of them do have a product right now, but they raised billions without it. I think this is the first time in the history that's happening. You see companies like OpenAI growing at 300% CAGR. Does it set a wrong precedence or kind of negatively distort the expectations for other industries, especially the industries that you're involved in, you know, medtech, robotics? does it like put a shade on it, on just, of this kind of unreasonable expectations?
I think that's a little bit true because we have seen that recently. Because when we invest into deep tech companies, it's usually like professors working in a lab, and a lot of IP behind it. We also have the mandate of running University of Chicago's own fund. So MFE Partners is managing University of Chicago's own fund. That's the first time that the University of Chicago had that fund. And we see professors putting in so much time, and young students along with them who are working a lot. But the expectation of valuation really has gone up, and it's unbelievable to the extent that we don't know like what to say to the professors that this is reasonable for like SaaS companies or other companies, but when it comes to like deep tech companies at the very early stage, you need to de-risk a lot of things. See, there's technology risk, the most important risk, because it's still a lab work. When it goes to the real market, what would happen? Then there's definitely market risk, financial risk, so many more risks, but the professors are unable to understand like that's the truth. But what we have done is that we have had a number of training sessions for these people, and these are pre-seed to seed stage, early stage startups from University of Chicago. So, and in that we made them understand that it's at an early stage, if you take capital from an outside VC who's more like a partner to you instead of an external fund, we would handhold them and help them guide in the right direction, because we are all about partners. Instead of venture investors, we are venture partners. We would stay with them. We'd open a number of doors for next round of funding, for introductions to pharma companies, various other companies where they want to do their pilots and studies. So I think like that's where they understand that the true value of the early stage investors is, it's not just the valuation, it's much, much more than that. And we have seen a lot of success on that way, because they are able to understand that it's at the early stage that, and you don't want to leave a bad mark on the entire society that you raised a lot of capital and you didn't even get out of the lab, because that's really important for the entire prestige of University of Chicago as well. So I think that's where people understand, and they're able to move away from it, and instead of raising a huge amount of money in the first round, they raise smaller capital. They rely a little bit on grant funding as well, because that happens a lot in medtech, which is slowing down these days, but still it's there. And then like sustainably grow a company forward, and then eventually like we'll help them in terms of growth to other markets, growth to hospitals, growth to pharma, CROs and all. So I think that's the true value that a VC adds.
Makes sense. And do you think like so now every VC, not probably every VC, but a lot of VCs are expecting an kind of AI badge on top of it, kind of an AI wrap, like saying, okay, we do something with AI. And if you think as a company is truly building something important, it's not AI, not everything is AI, obviously. Do you think it's limiting their chance to fundraise, like in the US or in this region?
I think when we look at companies, we know that AI can be added as a layer to all of those technologies later on. It's more like a commodity these days. But we look at companies that have a lot of IP. So it could be like they're looking at multimodal ways of collecting data. So like in terms of healthcare, we can see like wearable data, then EHR data, the kind of history that the patients have, and then the computational data that we have these days, use of simulation in clinical trials. These are the kind of data that are required. And then eventually you can put an AI layer to it. There are a lot of models out there that people can work in. In terms of healthcare, I think one of the main things is that the amount of data that's available is very limited, because the public data is very limited. So you need to have an IRB with the hospitals to sign up with them, and then eventually apply the models. So I think in terms of the AI layer, it's helpful, but we take it as like something that can be done later on. We focus more on the problem statement, the unmet clinical needs that's there, and then like there are ways to ramp up the startup later on.
Makes sense. So Walid, I want to ask you about the geographies. So do you see, in terms of expectations across geographies, do developed and emerging markets have different expectations in your view when it comes to startups, how they are evaluated, what is expected from them?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the Middle East, we took a very strategic decision to invest in very specific industries: logistics, fintech, a little bit of consumer, and B2B enterprises. So if you take a look at all of the different industries, those are pretty much groundwork industries. Because for you to build on top of them, you need to have fintech, you need to have logistics, These are the basic sort of pipelines that will allow you to then build industries in other sectors and other ways. And as a VC, we have a disease called scalability. Because if our companies don't scale, and if we don't help them to scale, we don't make money. So we need to be able to invest in companies that have the ability to do cross-border scalability in a very big way. So if we went into health tech, for example, we felt that there's a lot of regulation and we had to overcome that. Now, someone might say maybe fintech has a lot of regulation, but I think fintech was a must-have in order to have people, generate revenues and pay and do all of these things. Same thing with education. We feel that that's also still regulated. We haven't had a single platform that was able to scale across the whole MENA region. So we were very specific about what we looked at. Now, if I take my other lens, which is the China lens, China is very much into deep tech and very much into the ecosystem that enables them to come up with new technologies that are cheaper, leaner, better, meaner. We wouldn't be able to transport that into the Middle East just yet. There are some fantastic places, hotspots in the Middle East, such as research centers, King Abdullah University of Science and Technology, that is determined to bring IP out from this region. And I think we need to have IP from this region because we offer a very unique perspective on what we can bring to the world. Islamic finance, our culture, our ability to be situated in this part of the world can service a lot of different industries, but we haven't had that deep innovation and that deep tech unlocked yet. I think we needed to get into the world of VC and access to capital, investing in companies. Now we're trying to see where the exits are coming from. When I was fundraising 6-7 years ago, all of my LPs will say, the Middle East is cute, it's nice, it's a promising story, but where the hell are you going to get your exits from? Today we have a secondary market, we have an IPO market, and we're well on the way to have that full structure of capital coming in and recycling that capital for angel investors, VCs, private equity, and public markets. So we're building it. It's taken some time. You cannot expect what's happened in mature markets to be put on what's happening in the region. However, we're at a time of massive disruption, which means with the advent of AI, things are turned completely topsy-turvy. Today, for someone to come up with something brilliant and innovative can be of any place in the world. And I think what's happening right now is that coding and development of technology has been ubiquitized and completely flat. It's, with the likes of Lovable, Replit, anybody who doesn't know how to code can create an application. So that means brilliance can come from absolutely anywhere, from a person at any age, and it could really become, a huge impact. I think that's a very exciting thing that's happening. And I think the old models of the way that we used to do things even 6 months ago or 4 months ago are really no longer valid. And I think the Middle East today has already woken up. The capital is here, the market is here, the opportunity is here, the knowledge is here, the education is here. And I would bet my life that within the next 2 years, we're going to have massive innovation coming in from here, which we've never seen before on a global scale.
That's a huge bet. So this is kind of the thing that we're debating a lot internally in a fund, because to build a big kind of business in the region, for example, my experience is mostly in Southeast Asia, you need a lot of local specifics. You need a local advantage. And not that many countries in the world have this kind of advantage. Like China is one of them. When you can build, there's a local search engine, which is the largest one. There are a few other countries like this. Do you guys believe that Middle East, like the companies built here, can actually be can build enough moats to be competitive worldwide? Or we'll have some Googles of this world coming in and just, smashing it? Dr. Ruchi?
I mean, for me, it's 100%, but you go.
Yeah, we remember about the bad though, yeah.
Yeah, I can go for this one. So I'm also the chair of the core committee of the American University Dubai's incubator here. And I've seen the hunger that's there in the students here, because they really want to do something, and there's not enough capital that they think about. So So they try to do things in a bootstrapped way, and I think that's really important because, like, if you have access to a lot of capital, like as you mentioned, like they're the kind of companies that have raised so much capital, you tend to like lose focus and go out of the way and just maybe spend it all on some other stuff. But if you are lacking capital and you really have a vision, you see the kind of stories, the kind of exits that this region is seeing now, you want to be that, and that's the kind of role models that were missing earlier on, and I think that's one of the reasons that we didn't see a lot of startups earlier on in the Middle East. But now that we've seen a number of exits, there are icons like Fadi Gandour who have done this multiple times. I think it's amazing to see the kind of hunger in the students here. And it's Walid really mentioned a good point about commercialization of the research that comes out of universities. We are seeing that happen. We have this NYU Abu Dhabi booth here with the robots and all of the stuff that the students have built. I think it's amazing to see that kind of innovation come out of this region. Also, the UAE government has done a lot in terms of giving golden visas to talented individuals. I think that's one thing that's making a lot of talent come into this community, and that's helping a lot of startups and the entire ecosystem, because once these startups will grow, they'll be providing a lot of employment to the region as well. And once these alums of universities do some successful startups, they'll give back to the universities, right? In the US, all the universities run on endowment funds, and I think that's something that's not here. But if we see like the amount of success that will come out of this generation of young talent that's coming here in this region, it's amazing. Also, the UAE government is doing a lot on grooming the UAE Emirati talent. At Dubai SME and even here in Hub 71, they have various programs in which they're grooming up the Emirati talent, the local talent. Because I've seen like the Emiratis are really talented. It's just that like they don't know like which area to focus on and what's the right guidance or the mentorship that's required. And I think the government is doing a good job in terms of that as well. So we'll see a huge outflow of amazing startups in this region, and eventually the startups can grow in the Middle East itself, or they can go to the US or other countries as well. And I think we have seen a lot of that happening recently as well.
So my answer is it's happening. It's happening. You know what I want for Christmas? I want the new AI humane Saudi computer that just is about to launch. I never in my lifetime did I think that I would be pining over a computer that is built in Saudi Arabia as my #1 Christmas gift. It's happening, people. I don't know what you're waiting for, but like a city like Neom is futuristic. How do you think all the technologies that we're building right now, where are they going to test them? They're going to test them in Saudi. They're going to test them in the UAE. The things that they're building in this part of the world supersedes anything that has been done in history. I'm so proud to be part of this region and part of the story, and at this point in time, in the evolution of what's happening. And it's all due to the leadership. And it's all due to the vision that already took place. Because they placed their bets right. You know, when I was growing up, I was like, oh, I come from the Middle East. You know, people think that we have a desert with camels and I'm going to drill some oil. That whole notion of vision of what the Middle East was to people that didn't understand it now has been completely changed because of the life that we live in the UAE and in this region. So everybody already woke up. The leadership woke up. They knew exactly what to do. Now that they're building infrastructure on AI where all the chips are here and the NVIDIA deals and everything else that's happening, the next 2 or 3 years are going to be incredible, and the story is for us. You were never going to look at, you know, US companies and say, wow, that's the best technology in the world. I really don't think so. I think the pace of what evolution has brought to the table today in terms of money, in terms of talent, in terms of vision, is all going to come out of the Middle East. And I think it's some of the proudest years of our lives.
Amazing. Yeah, I want to talk a little bit about expectations again. So when we talk about VC, and we, as a fund, we see this a lot in Southeast Asia, that a lot of outside VC come to the region. They have this perspective of a Silicon Valley startup building something, hyperscaling, growing super fast across geographies, across countries, which never happens in Southeast Asia, by the way. This is another story, but we're not discussing Southeast Asia here. But do you believe this kind of expectations that VCs have, especially like American LP, like VCs, is not really good for the ecosystem in general? Walid?
Yeah, I can start on that. So like earlier on when I just came to the UAE after my MBA, I was seeing like the kind of startups that were just growing out here in the Middle East and in India. A lot of those were like copycat startups. So like if something is successful in the US or in the Western world, you can just replicate that model here. But that's something that never works because the culture here in the Middle East is completely different than that in the US. So the reason Kareem was successful was that they really adopted the culture here. If you look at the language that they use, the advertising they use, it's all about like the Middle Eastern lingo, like yala and all of that. So I think that's one thing that a lot of these VCs and startups miss. They just think that if they can replicate something, it'll just work. But the culture here is super important. I mean, I was born and raised in the region, so I understand it very well. It's not just about like taking one trip to the UAE and just expecting something to happen. It's not like that. You have to actually understand the culture, put in the work to understand the culture, and then see how you can do and take advantage of the culture and move forward.
So for me, it's not fair to compare apples to oranges. So for me, as a startup in the US, if you start something, you kind of have your dream exits, right? You've got your Microsoft, you've got your Apples, you've got your Googles. You know that you're building for a purpose. You know that if I build this, it'll be acquired. I know that there's capital involved. I know where to go for a VC. And it's a culture that kind of has been built on that model. Taking that model and superimposing it on a place like the Middle East, 22 countries, different dialects, different geographic restrictions and needs. And, you don't have to do that if you're trying to take your company from North Dakota to South Dakota. It's not the same as scaling in the Middle East where you have all of these different obstacles and conundrums. So taking that model not necessarily is going to adapt to this part of the world. However, being in VC for such a long time, we've been able to do something that is amazing. Build technology from the region and get acquired by international companies, and based on scale. But there are only really 3 markets in this part of the world that really matter. Egypt, KSA, and UAE. Anything else is nice to have. But we haven't seen a company that has started in any geography, be it Kuwait, Oman, Qatar, any place else, that has not tapped into these 3 markets that got acquired. And I'm happy for anybody to come back and tell me I'm wrong. But those are the 3 main markets. If you have those markets, then you've got something that actually makes sense and you're able to then, be acquired or IPO or something else. So I think it's time now that we don't just look at the US model of doing things and start to creatively innovate on what we have. I think we've built some kind of VC landscape. But I think any international VC coming into the region saying, hey, the playbook that worked in Silicon Valley is going to work in the UAE is just, it's not going to happen. And so a lot of venture capital funds coming in, trying to knock the door, get some money from some LPs in the region, and then play their playbook is not going to happen. And I think Saudi Arabia and the UAE and all of the countries here were very smart and pragmatic to say, you want to play ball with us? Establish an office. Get people on the ground. I want to learn exactly what you're doing. I need to be able to learn from you. I need to be able to innovate from the models that you're going to bring in, and we're going to create even something better. And so, that's what happened to us. We came in with a thesis, but we actually had to be sovereign to be able to move forward and invest in companies in the region.
Just adding on to Walid's point, I think I've seen the governments here in the UAE, they have if you go to their websites, most of the governments have an open innovation project on their websites. So just problems that they're facing, and they want the public and the startups to work on those solutions. So that entire concept of co-creation and open innovation, I think it's really helping this entire economy quite a lot, and it motivates students from universities to work on crazy ideas to solve the problem for companies like the government and the sovereign companies. So I think that's something that I've seen recently happen, and it's really working out very well. It's motivating a lot of startups here.
And to the point that Walid said, in terms of being based in here and setting up your office and hiring people here, it's not only about the expectation of general partners moving here. It's obviously commitment to the region and commitment in terms of investments. And for me, it's kind of a segue to discussing the LPs and their expectations. So we observe the following. So we'll see LPs seem to pressure VCs for returns. VCs are pressuring startups with increased expectations. And startups sometimes pressure themselves too much, and they pressure themselves so much that they actually have to, and we see this in Southeast Asia quite a lot, unfortunately, they have to fake accounts. They have to put the AI badge when there is no AI. And we've seen so many companies like this. Walid, do you think this is a fair observation? Do you see something like this in the region, of this kind of like feedback, positive feedback loop happening?
I mean, the short answer is, if you're going to take VC money, and if, first of all, if you decided to be an entrepreneur, I mean, good luck. You know, you've decided to put everything else on hold, including your sanity, your family. Nothing comes first except this company that you're building, right? That's number one. Number two is, if you decided to take VC money, it means that you've taken rocket fuel and you've become liable for exponential returns. So the pressure and the burden that you've put on yourself is incredible. Same thing for a VC fund. We have to get those 10x returns to be able to give it back to our LPs. So I agree with you about the pressure cooker that comes down, and the poor entrepreneur that decided that they're going to build $1 billion company feels the weight of the world on their shoulders every morning. That is real. And we can talk about mental health, and we can talk about how we're supporting these entrepreneurs. But having said that, I think there is a lot of pressure to be able to get those returns. So if that means they have to register in 4 jurisdictions to get the VC money, if it means they have to tick the box by saying, I have Saudiization and I have to employ 4 or 5 employees, you put so much pressure on this entrepreneur that they're only looking how to get to the finish line. Anything in between that they have to do, they have to get some debt, they have to hire employees that they're not going to use, that it's unhealthy. It's somebody who is basically drugged on the capital that comes in from VCs in order to go to where they need to go, or else they're going to burn. And their burning is not an easy story to do. So, I mean, I take responsibility for that as well. As a venture capitalist, I sat on boards of companies telling them, you know, your business plan for the next year, for it to be approved, has to be double or triple or quadruple what you did last year. We're expecting them to do things that are not natural. So I think a lot of that has been put into place. I think the ones that were able to do it are because they were experienced entrepreneurs. VCs come and say, we're entrepreneur friendly, we're happy to build you, but actually it's the entrepreneur that has experience and resilience are the ones that are going to move forward. Case in point is Tabi, Hussam Arab. You know, he's been there, he knows the market, he established Tabi, and he was able to get into unicorn status. But a lot of people don't have the same pedigree as that. You know, so unfortunately, a lot of people have to go into this line of funding that adds a lot of pressure and almost unhuman expectations.
I'd like to add a slightly different opinion from a GP perspective. So in some of our portfolio companies, like they were like amazing opportunities for exits, but we don't know like whether, because we see the huge potential of these companies. For example, like we entered Agility Robotics and PsiQuantum back in 2018, and like those are like more than $7 billion in valuation. So what happens is like there weren't many exit opportunities, many investors that were ready in the very beginning, but we thought that we'll leave money on the table, and I think that helped us quite a lot. But at this stage, like when you were talking about LPs, so we still have to return the fund. Like DPI is something that all the LPs look for, even though like the numbers on the paper look amazing, but DPI is something that really matters. So what we thought was that instead of, because these companies are going public soon, so we thought like we'll do some sort of secondary sale, and the amount of interest that we saw from LPs and like in general the market was huge. But it's, I think that's one of the like. I remember, Maxim, you mentioned that you have an evergreen fund. Like for us, it's a timeline fund, so we do have to return money to the LPs, and that's where we think that at times we have to leave money on the table, because like you see huge potential, and we enter these companies really at an early stage. So in 2018, like nobody knew about Agility Robotics or PsiQuantum. So Agility Robotics, like last year, it got funding from Amazon, Ford, and they're like the first humanoid robot that was able to climb the stairs and all. So I think that's an amazing time to be, but at the same time, like, because you have restrictions as an LP to return the capital back, I think there's some sort of like negotiation that would happen later on.
Makes sense. Yeah, and obviously it's not all sectors are equal in this, right? So one expectations comes down to, like, from AI company, they can scale faster and all that, but robotics, like we have companies in, like building drones, or a company in cybersecurity, they can't grow that fast. It's just unhealthy. You need to get the sustainable growth. And investors, they split into two groups: those looking for sustainable growth and those are playing capitalization game. And I'm really not sure this region is good for the capitalization game. What I'm kind of glad to see is that a lot of startups are actually building a real businesses. They're looking at their bottom line. They're actually trying to build something sustainable. But I want to go back to the AI hype. And how did this AI hype impact your LPs? And kind of LPs allocation strategy in general? Do they expect you to make more bets on AI, or you kind of stay with your focus and AI is good to have in a mix?
Anybody who stays in their focus without putting any importance on AI is going to fail. It's done. AI has come in and it's disrupted absolutely everything. So our LPs say, yes, we want you to invest in AI. But I think the education and the understanding of what AI really is and what it looks like is still a process. If somebody comes in and has an enterprise solution and then wraps it up with a little chatbot and says, hey, I'm AI, is that really true? Is it really native and built that way and thinks that way autonomously as they scale and grow? The answer is no. So while we used to do tech DD for each and every of our company, and we have experts that look into that, today that has become a core requirement for every single company that we take a look at. So it's not enough that you're solving a problem. It's not enough that you are a star founder. It's really now about what technology you're using. Is it third-party technology? Are you using APIs from someplace else? What happens to that company if it shuts down? Does that mean all of your business is going to shut down as well? How much do you own, all of the source code? How much do you own in terms of all of the data and where it's sitting? So while we used to take a look at technology and we didn't have to understand it too much if they were able to bring in revenues and do what they need to do, today it's not like that at all. Today I need to dig infinitely deeper to really understand what it means that they're using AI, and can it stand the test of time, and how does it look like, compared to everybody else. And the amount of noise that I have to filter through is incredible. Because now everybody tells me that they're AI and they're AI native and they're doing everything in AI and they built their own AI and they have that's not true. We don't have the capabilities to do that. So it's become we're much more selective. It's been much harder to find companies that are actually doing something that is unique. My one question to every single startup that has pitched me over the last 6 months was, prove to me what competitive advantage you have over everybody else in your industry. Most of them cannot answer the question. Most of them say something very generic like, we are localized, or we use the Arabic language, or we use AI. Everybody does it now. You really have to be very specific about what you have that is unique, that allows me to invest in you over everybody else. It's been very, very difficult for us to find that.
So we invest into like category defining products. So like each of these could be like a whole new vertical, like humanoid robot. It's a whole industry on its own. Quantum, it's quantum computing. It's a whole industry on its own. Space tech. So I think like we have looked a lot at AI companies, and one company that we are particularly fond of right now, it's still in the lab in the University of Chicago, is that whenever you create an image with any of these GPTs and all, like if you ask, like if there's a spelling mistake and you ask it to correct it, it never does. It makes some other mistake, right? So that's one problem that till now is not being solved. But like there's one startup that's working on that, and we're very excited about that. And adding to Walid's point about AI, I think like on the other hand, like as VCs, we ourselves use a lot of AI. So because, and it's really necessary. So recently we created a whole investment memo prompt for Gemini, and like any startup that we look after, we'll first like put it, and it's not shareable data because we have the enterprise version. And similarly, we are looking at doing something with the GPT as well, because if we don't leverage those tools, and if you're not like really adaptable to the change, then like this is an industry that evolves so fast. So we definitely have to do our work in the AI space as well.
And that's actually that's a good point, because I wanted to ask about the how VCs and you guys changing your process with the generative AI. Do you have more analysts these days or less analysts that you have to hire? Because we've seen funds that actually just get rid of the analysts as a class. So there's no junior people at the fund, so they replaced it with the LLMs, and they do, as you said, the memo is just okay. So what do you guys do in your processes?
I mean, I use ChatGPT and I skate around the corners and I try to find loopholes and to get the memo out as fast as possible. And we don't do the kind of research we used to do because information is available. So one thing that it has shifted the focus from numbers and metrics and memos that look nice, and if you forgot something, you're going to be penalized about it, has shifted the focus into the human side of things. Actually, can we do a little bit of a more DD? Have you met the founder? Who does the founder know? What family tree do they come from? What other businesses have they done? Have they pissed anybody off? And I think that's much more telling. What does the executives do? And how are they kind of creating a culture together? Those are things that are a little bit more subtle and harder to detect, but are much higher indicators of the success of the company. So I'm actually glad that there's AI now that is doing all of my memos and doing all of my research, and I can satisfy all of the things that I need for the ESG part of things for my LPs. I want to automate all of that stuff because, I think the human side of things is much more important, and I think VC historically has lost track of that. We're constantly looking at for the next 10x and the next unicorn and the next big thing, and we really forgot about what's happening on the HR side of things, which I think now has a lot more focus because, up until this day, I don't know of any AI that can tell me what the characteristics of X, Y, and Z is so far.
Yeah, and adding on to that, I'll just quote a small example that we had with one of our portfolio companies. Like we do a lot of due diligence on the founders because founders is the only thing that you see at that point. There's no product, and there's nothing. It's just a lab and the founders. So there was a two-founder team, and we saw that they went to school together, college together, and then eventually built the company. So we were like very happy about it, and the company was doing fine. But then, and I was on the board of the company, and all of a sudden, like the founder, one of the founders came and they said that no, I cannot work with this co-founder anymore. I need to split, and that's the best disaster that could ever happen in any of the portfolio companies. So I had a board meeting, and I met the founders separately, and I realized that one of the founders was given the task of fundraising, and the other founder was doing the operations. So the one that was doing fundraising thought that, oh, fundraising is so bad, you have to like go to all the investors, hear a lot of no's, and operations is so easy. And the person who was doing operations said that, oh, fundraising is so good, he can wear his coat pant and go and meet all the VCs and all of that, while I'm doing all the dirty work, talking to the drivers and handling all the mess on the ground. And it was when we spoke to both of them together, they understood that the grass is not greener on the other side. There's huge complications on each side, and it's only like what you're best at. And they're happy to switch roles as well. But then they realized whatever they were doing was much better suited for them, and then the company thrived at all. Okay. Yeah.
Well, that's kind of the role of VC sometimes, to be kind of a judge of it. Like just, trying to talk to every founder and decide, kind of understand what they actually want. We had absolutely the same case, but the other way around. So like one founder is like, say, oh, you're not doing you're just fundraising. It's so easy. You're just talking to people all day long, and I'm here just grinding and building the product. So I'm underappreciated. Like, so maybe, in terms of your ESOP kind of split, it should be a little bit different. So you have to manage this kind of conflicts.
I've been a therapist many times, talking to founders, making sure they don't split up, talking to heads of departments and making sure that, they're taken care of. Yes, it's a lot of it is very much human in the way that we do things.
And kind of this leads me to the metrics part, right? Because this is something you can't quantify, is obviously the human element in every company, which is the most important. But I believe the VCs, they kind of split into two groups. One believes that market is more important, that kind of the market fundamentals is more important. Like, Don Valentine was one of them, like the Sequoia guys. But the second group is more about the company because there are a lot of pivots. About the founder because there are a lot of pivots on the way. Companies change direction and all that. What are the metrics? And obviously, the founder, talk a little bit about founder as well. But what are the metrics that you guys incorporate? I've heard you said competitive edge. Sometimes also tough to quantify because we're building a moat, and so oftentimes the company doesn't have that moat. They have to build it. How do you evaluate this, like when it comes to this? And with the arrival of generative AI, have your metrics changed?
When it comes to founders, we have a skill set written down. We have a matrix in which they're all like good things to have in founders, but there should be like some sort of spike, like some sort of additional quality that would really move the needle, and that's really important. That's one thing that we look on the HR side of things, and then we do a lot of due diligence in terms of like speaking to the previous companies where he worked or any previous co-founders and understanding all of that because that's really important for the long term because we are just betting on the founders. And as you correctly mentioned that oftentimes these companies pivot quite a lot, so it's only the founder that you're counting on, and the technology could change, a lot of new things could happen in the company. And in terms of metrics, like revenue is something that we don't look at all because we invest in such early stage that revenue would happen like maybe 5-6 years after that. And we are lucky if we have like some sort of paid pilots. So initially the companies would not have paid pilots, but they would have done their own research in terms of at least the regulatory framework, the freedom to operate, the kind of patents and the defensibility and the moat of the technology. So it's mainly the technological risk that we wind on in terms of the early stage companies. And then later on, once the technology risk is de-risked, then they can go to the market to work on the pilots and all. And one of the important milestones that we see with startups is that having paid pilots, because free pilots is something that any startup can do. It's very easy. It's not so easy in the healthcare space, but still like it doesn't prove much because when you're doing like free pilots for pharma companies or hospitals, it doesn't really say much. It's just a good logo to have on your pitch deck. But if a customer is actually paying for it, that so shows that the startup would really add value to the company later on. So I think that's one of the metrics we see early on. So it's very, very early stage revenue, but I think that's an important milestone that we look at for startups.
Cool.
So from the deep tech side or from the China side, we're looking at IP and we're looking at innovation, something that hasn't been done before and something that we can prove that this is unique. It has its own, specific IP. And it wants to build it. And I'm talking mostly about humanoid robots and some of the technologies that we're seeing right now. But if I look at the Middle East and this market, a gentleman yesterday approached me with a great idea. And if I wasn't in this AI forum, and if he approached me 3-4 months ago, I'd say, actually, that's a really interesting problem that you're trying to solve. I like you. I'm happy to look deeper into it, and maybe we can have a discussion, and this can become part of my pipeline. Today, having an idea and talking to a venture capitalist for me is not going to work. So while I would have entertained a few months ago something that is pre-rev, that is pre-MVP, that is based on an idea, today I will not, absolutely not. And the individual said, well, I need capital to build my platform. And I said, you don't need capital to build your platform. You could do it for free. So all I'm saying is, I used to take a look at things very early on because I'm a venture capitalist, which means I'm risking very high. Today, my risk tolerance has gone down so much that I'm like, have you tried this out? Do you have paying customers? What does your tech look like? And I'm much more selective and pushing them to say, maybe you actually don't even need VC money at this point in time if you're generating your own. I want you to be first into market. I want you to show me, not only your competitive advantage, but how much market share that you have. And then maybe I'll think of investing in you as a venture capitalist. So the competition has gone up so high for me, and I haven't invested in a company in the last 3-4 months because I can't tell what's going on. So I'm taking my time to be like, okay, I need to due diligence the tech properly, and I need to see how unique this application is or this product is compared to everything that's out there. And my metric today is I will only invest in a company that can build something that I myself, as an individual that has never done any coding, cannot build. Anybody who comes up to me and says, hey, I have this application, if I can do the same thing on Replit or Lovable, I'm not going to invest in them. And I think the entrepreneurs today have to really step up and understand that the VCs now really understand what's going on, and they really have to present something that is unique and not out there.
Yeah. I mean,
Also, a new trend that we are seeing these days is a lot of, like earlier on, we used to see like founders wanting to be VCs and all. These days, we see VCs wanting to be founders. So a lot of VCs are leaving the venture capital world and starting their own companies because they've seen the problems from both ends, and now the barrier to entry is so low, like they can do their own coding. I think it's amazing to see like the VCs step down and become founders. That speaks a lot about the potential. Yeah.
I'm actually thinking of doing that because I think VC is being disrupted left, right, and center, honestly. Like, you know, the barrier to entry into building your technology and scaling it today, you don't necessarily need a VC anymore in this day and age. So, yeah, I'm being disrupted. I'm old school now.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. VC has become less adventurous. That's the problem these days. But I want to ask you about. So we have a few minutes left. So before I get to the audience, and whether you guys, if you have any questions, just raise your hands so we can see you. But while you're preparing, so maybe we can talk a little bit about the sectors you like most. So what gets you excited? Sectors in Middle East, not necessarily in the Middle East, just globally, that you believe are tremendous potential, maybe the company you want to build yourself. So we as a fund, we're super excited about like cybersecurity, especially. We invest a lot in cybersecurity, and we have this AI hacking and all this happening. There's a lot of exciting things happening. We're excited about robotics as well. We have like a few like drone companies like in oil and gas tech and things like this. I believe that a lot of interesting companies going to be built in these spaces. What about you guys? What makes you kind of, you know, excited?
Yeah, so MFV Partners is a deep tech fund, so we invest into category defining startups. So it could be like various industries, but we are very fond of robotics, quantum, space tech, and I lead the healthcare part of it. So in terms of healthcare, I'm very excited about the new things that are happening. Like to name a few, like portfolio companies that are very, very early stage, but they're solving real problems. So one of them is like when you have seizures, there's no company till now that can predict a seizure before it happens. So that's a very important problem to solve, and this company somehow has made a patch that can be worn by children, by adults, and they can predict a seizure 30 minutes before the seizure happens. So it's really useful, and it will have a huge impact. Similar to that, we're investing into a company that's mapping the entire brain. So they're taking slices of the human brain and trying to create an entire map of the human brain. So this would result in the discovery of completely new biomarkers. I think that's really exciting. And then definitely the use of AI for computational biology, the use of AI for clinical trials, drug repurposing, and all of those things are exciting. We've already invested into DNA encoded library startups as well. So I think this entire space of the use of AI in healthcare and medtech is really revolutionary, and I'm really excited about the future.
If anybody listens to the podcast Diary of a CEO, I listen to that religiously, and I think there's a lot of great ideas or, you know, things to contemplate and think about. I think education hasn't been disrupted correctly. It hurts me when my 11-year-old goes to school and comes back and says, why am I learning this? I can do it on ChatGPT. I don't have a good answer for him. I could say, well, you need to learn how to prompt, and then you need to see if that AI gave you something that is verifiable. But other than that, I mean, he's right. You know, and I wish education would get to a place where we could be smarter about the way that we teach the future generation. Number two is healthcare and medtech and health tech. I have an Aura ring, and I have these Meta glasses, and it's like, give me anything that I could, you know about my blood pressure, my heart rate, the way that I sleep, my moods. I want to be able to see if I'm drinking the right amount of matcha compared to my mood today, depending on what my wife told me. And if my son annoyed me, then I need to do something else. Like, that's where we're going. And I think health tech has not been disrupted at the consumer level in a very big way. And I think very soon we're going to have injectables, and we're going to have, you know, half droid stuff that we can. And I honestly can't wait. I want to optimize myself as much as possible. And I think mental health and healthcare. I think COVID was a big aha moment for everybody. But today, I think mental well-being goes hand in hand with physical well-being. And I think that's a big moment for us to really talk about our consciousness, talk about what our values are and where we're heading. And I think technology will be able to help that.
Amazing.
Just adding one last comment to Walid's answer there. I was recently on an all doctors panels, and all the doctors were saying that these days the patients are so much more adherent to whatever recommendation you give them. Like earlier on, like patients never used to listen, they didn't take care of their health. But these days we have patients like Walid who have the best of wearables, and anything that the doctor advises, they take it so religiously. And I think that's the whole era of preventive health. So with preventive health and then eventually like precision medicine, that's a whole new era of healthcare would erupt. And it will really, in terms of the insurance companies and the stakeholders involved, I think it will be disrupted.
Yeah, probably you see patients that come to you and they know exactly what's happening with them, for sure. They ask ChatGPT and they certain about certain things. So do you guys have any questions? Because we have a few minutes left. So please. Sorry, can you help with the mic, please?
Sorry, hi.
Where?
Hi, I have a question. I love the way that Walid Faza was talking about AI. And upon the fact that you said it's destructive for our generations, but and you said then in contradiction that it helps you with your memos. I just find it very disappointing that some of the people would count it as threatening and destructive when actually it is just a tool. I mean, I use my NutriBullet to do my protein shakes. AI is it's the same thing, it's just a tool. And what makes it funny that I attended GITEX this year, and I saw this stall in the German, it's like a German stall. And he was such a smart individual, the creator of this stall. And he had Einstein, and he was like, you can talk to him in whatever language you can, and he would get back, he would reply to you. And when I talked to him in Emirati, and like I was like, مرحبا ساعة إيش حالك? He was looking at me, the AI was looking at me and was repetitively saying like nonsense. So what I think that AI is just a tool. No matter how destructive people think and threatening and whatever nonsense, personally I think that, sorry. I think...
Did you have a question?
Yeah, it's just a question, again. Why do you see it so destructive and you're being very contradictive at the same time upon it?
Thank you for calling me out on it. Honestly, I think that's very perceptive of you because it is a little bit contradictory what I'm saying. If you look at the world compute power today, where it is and where it'll be every 5 minutes from now, it's really at an exponential growth. And what I'm saying is a little bit fear-based because we've never come to a place where, you know, we've reached a point where technology can think and act for itself. It's always been a tool. And I agree with you. But if you look into the future a little bit, there could be a time that you will have, you know, a shift where AI can do things that we are not, as humans, a part of. And unless we build AI for good and have the metrics, just like how we raise our kids and we tell them what's good and bad, and we have morals and ethics built into these beautiful human beings, we need to do the same thing because technology is going in that level. I'm hopeful, and I hope that your reality is the one that works. And we see that technology is always going to be a tool that helps us. And like, I'm a junkie, right? I use this stuff all the time. I love it. I love technology. It's bettered our lives. It's created more equality. I mean, we can go on and on and on. But I cannot deny the fact that there is a potential destruction that can happen if we don't build it. And it's up to humanity to actually do it, you know? So I'm with you 100%, but maybe what I'm saying is that we really need to be aware that we are treading a very fine line towards the next chapter of what evolution is for human beings.
And just adding on to it, like recently from my daughter's school, we were sent a video in which we were made to understand that we should make sure that the kids don't access the GPTs and all, because, you know, especially with the image models that are out there, and if they can, like with the Sora model, with the videos, if you can just put a kid's face and create a nasty video about something, and these kids would eventually get bullied by somebody and just for maybe 500 dirham or something like that. So I think it's really scary, and it would ruin a kid's life if you give them access to such tools.
Makes sense. And I mean, just one quick one from me is that obviously it's a tool, but you should perceive it as a tool. A lot of people relying on this too much, on relationship advice, on how to build their future. It's not going to tell you.
It's telling me.
You're one of those. You're one of those. And my brothers as well. I have two younger brothers that rely on these things too much. Instead of asking me, I am the wisdom and help. But anyways, so yeah, I think you have to, this is a tool. It's like Excel. It's not going to tell you your. Actually, it kind of tells me my fortune. Yeah, no way. Any more questions?
Hey guys, really appreciate the insights, guys. Really wonderful panel thus far. My question revolves around this, because we are seeing a fundamental commodification of very powerful AI capabilities, whether it's around language models and other technologies out there. The question now comes to the lens through which VCs or private equity companies are going to evaluate prospects, because where do you really draw the line on the need for IP and having that moat, especially if a lot of startups are, let's say, using these commodity AI technologies to deliver actual value. So where is the balance between ensuring that you've got strong IP and defensibility versus the impact that the startup or the idea is going to be able to generate in the market in which it's operating?
So thank you for the question. It refers back to my earlier answer. My honest answer is I don't know. I don't know how to tell the difference between someone who comes up to me and pitches a good idea, depending on if it's a good technology or not, and if it's going to stand the test of time. I really have no idea. So what I'm doing in my investments today, as I mentioned earlier, I think a first mover strategy and market land grab today means a lot to me. Because that means you can keep generating your revenues on what you've done from your clients. You're able to take the latest technology, iterate, and then move it forward. But you're already embedded. You already have a market. You're already operational. But if you come to me in a very early stage, it's so much more difficult for me to understand where it's going to go and what it's going to look like. So I'm hedging my bets by going a little bit up the value chain, by taking companies that have proven that there is a demand today. I'd rather invest in that, securing myself and my LPs, than doing something completely risky, because honestly, I have no idea.
So yeah, just have one more question as well, if it's possible to ask one question. Actually, I'm just wondering if you could share any criteria or any questions that you ask to founders when it comes to AI, when you do your due diligence, for example, in the technology side or maybe the finance one. Just curious about it. How does it go?
Okay. Yeah, I think we discussed it a little bit. So obviously, all of us will be focusing on different things because our funds have different focus. I think one common thing, we'll ask about your background, why you building this, why you building, why this, why you, why now is the right time, why this is the right geography, like what's your defensibility, how are you going to build it, like this is the most important. Like, and I think this is like the first batch of questions you have to be prepared for, and it depends on your stage. Like if you're a little bit more mature as a company, we'll ask you about, depending on whether you're B2C or B2B, we'll ask you about retention, unit economics, we'll ask about all of those kind of boring things. But the most important, as we discussed just now, would be your personality and why you're doing this and why no one has built this before. This is also important. Why just, Microsoft will just come in and, build something similar. I'm exaggerating, but this is kind of the point. Yeah. Awesome. So I think one thing this, you have one question. So I think we have time for one more. So yeah, one more.
Hi. The question is is VC started to looking granular and deep rather than the vertical shift? Or is it how the paradigm have been from the lens of the perspective? Is it the Walid has emphasis on more on the granularity, and is it rather than showing the dream actuality from that extrapolation of the achievable? Is the transition is happening in a VC game?
I mean, my answer is clear. When I had a pipeline 10 years ago of maybe one gaming company, maybe two edtech companies, maybe 3 logistics companies, then it was like, okay, we need these things and we'll invest in them and we'll help you along the way and we can be a friendly VC. And today, when I have thousands in each industry coming at me, very difficult to tell the difference between them. Very difficult to tell what the tech is. Understanding that times are changing, so I have to be granular. If I'm doing a fiduciary service for my LPs, they're investing in me because apparently I know how to fund, I know how to invest. So that means my due diligence has gone much, 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 much more granular, even to a place where I don't even can't tell the difference. I need to pin things against each other, see the competitive nature of it, understand where they're going. It's just because I've been entrusted with that capital to put it in a place that is going to work and that is going to bring returns. So I don't really have a choice except to go down that path. Unless something revolutionary comes up that the entrepreneur has the onus to come to me and convince me that this is the way to do it, then maybe I won't be so granular and I say, yeah, I haven't heard about this before, let's go for it. But other than that, the differentiation now has been very difficult to identify.
Yeah. So we're gonna finish soon. So I'll ask one last question. So if the audience could just leave with one just key takeaway from this discussion, and we covered a lot of topics, what would it be? Just one liner, maybe two?
I think I'll just add one point that I didn't mention earlier, but it's all about storytelling, especially for the founders here, because if you don't show passion when you're pitching, then it loses the entire game. I've seen many technical founders who fail to make eye contact, fail to show the passion. They're really bright and they really built the right product, but if they're unable to create a story around it, I think that's where a lot of founders need a lot of coaching as well.
I see there's a lot more questions. Happy to talk to anybody who wants to be in touch, so we can do that off stage. If you have not downloaded, everybody downloaded ChatGPT, right? Everybody's using ChatGPT. You're at an AI conference.
Grok? No?
For those of you who have not downloaded Replit, you should do so. And for those of you that are scared of technology or don't understand coding or think that it's in another universe, just put a simple prompt. Whatever it is, any problem that you want to solve in your life. I did it the first time for my expenses. Every month I have to do my home expenses and my work expenses. And I had to go through all of my bank statements and parse them out on Excel, and it was a very tedious thing. So I opened up Replit and I said, hey, I'm going to take a copy of the SMS that comes to me, I'm going to put it on Replit, and I want it to tell me exactly what category it is, and it's going to do all the work for me. And I tried it, and it works amazing. And I'm sure there's a lot of applications that do it, but I wanted it to be customized to my need. And Replit allowed me to do that. And now instead of taking 6 hours at the end of the month to do stupid finances, I can do it in a few minutes. So please download Replit or download an app that can do that, and please start to experiment. You're going to understand that today, the only limiting factor of creating companies is your own creativity. We're in a new world, ladies and gentlemen, and everybody needs to be able to do this for the good of humanity, and so we don't go into extinction.
Amazing. Thanks a lot. So yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Dr. Ruchi, Walid, thanks a lot for your time. I think it was pretty exciting. And as Walid said, if you have more questions, feel free to approach us off stage. Thank you very much.